Humans podcast. My name's Hallie Madeline, and each week we'll be interviewing inspiring humans from all over the world who are living examples of what happens when you pour energy into yourself so that you're better equipped to give energy to the world around you. It starts within, but it doesn't end within, because when we show up for ourselves, we show up for the world. Hello, all you beautiful humans, and welcome to episode 5 of the Happy Humans podcast. My guest today is Mr. Joe Buckner, who is the owner of Beautifully Savage Boxing Studio in Fort Collins, Colorado. He's a Lululemon ambassador and is just an all-around inspiring, incredible human being. He has such a powerful story of stepping into his own power and his own truth, and has so many amazing nuggets of wisdom to share with you guys today about empathy, about stepping into our power, about discipline, about finding more just compassion with other humans, and just creating a world filled with happy humans. And I took so many important lessons away from just doing this interview with him. So without further ado, I am so excited to introduce Joe to you guys. All right. Hi, everybody. It's Hallie, and we're here again on the Happy Humans podcast with the amazing Joe Buckner, who is an incredible, incredible human. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk with you. This is going to be dope.
Yes, you're dope.
As are you.
So do you want to begin by just introducing yourself, telling us kind of who you are, what you're up to in life right now?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you said it. I'm Joe Buckner. I live in Fort Collins, Colorado. I am a father, son, friend, entrepreneur, speaker, unintended social activist, brand ambassador. I do a lot, but really, like, the only thing I really try to do is every single day I just wake up with the same intention, right? I want to leave everybody better than I found them, and I want to leave every space better than I found it. So I think if I focus on that, then it just makes my life pretty simple. Yes,
that's an incredible life motto. And from what I've witnessed, you do an incredible job of that. So
thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So I know you have an incredible, deep, powerful story of, you've made so many Instagram posts about the concept of overnight success and how that's not a thing. And I love that you're so vocal about what it has taken to get to where you are and kind of your journey. So would you want to highlight that a little bit of just how much it's taken to get here and kind of the process and your journey of becoming who you are now?
Yeah, I guess, would we be referring to the lifetime or the entrepreneurial journey?
I think both. I think they're so connected.
Rad. Okay. Yeah, I think that what I've gone through my lifetime has definitely served me as an entrepreneur. So I'll keep it brief because I know we don't have 30 years. The film that you mentioned, we filmed 44 hours for 8 minutes of film. So sometimes it takes a while to tell these stories, but sorry, I have a wallet in my back pocket bugging me. Born and raised right here in Fort Collins, Colorado. I'm incredibly grateful. I live in a really cool place downtown. But the coolest part about it is across the street is my grandparents' house. So down the alley, I can still see the house I grew up in with my grandparents, immigrants from Mexico. And, my mother was 18 and my father was 16 when I was born. And so basically my grandparents raised me almost the first 4 years of my life. So it's really cool to be able to every day honor them in that home just by, doing good. People laugh a lot because they say, people that knew me when I was a little kid, they say it's the weirdest thing because if you look at you see this little black kid with the afro who could only speak Spanish. So it was the weirdest thing. But I grew up very, very modest. My grandfather's farm was a block down the road. There's currently a company called New Belgium that sits on it. That's kind of one of our family kick yourself in the rear things of not understanding the value of land better. My grandfather sold that land for $40,000 in the 90s, and now New Belgium's there. So, just a lifetime of not knowing. Does that make sense? A lifetime of not understanding, no one being educated on a different way of living life. So say all that to say, born and raised here, was a 5-sport athlete in high school, lettered in 5 varsity sports. I was all state in 3. I played college football, but I still came from one of those families that was always 30 cents away from a quarter. You know what I'm saying? Just very, very poor. And so I didn't know any other way. I went to school and I just started working. I think that's what a lot of people do, right? You go to school, just get a job, and then you work, and then one day you die. And it's like, all right, did my part. And so I was doing that, and I actually had a pretty good job. Worked for a guy named Jake Jabs, selling furniture at American Furniture Warehouse. And, 25 years old, I probably made 60 grand a year. It wasn't the worst life in the world, but I'm a pretty overly ambitious person. Like, the more I get, the more my ambition says there's more. And so I knew people that were doing things a little bit easier than I was, working weekends, every single holiday. And so eventually I became what's, we like to refer to as a street pharmacist, but the legal system calls it a drug dealer. And and I built a business out of it. Again, I'm ambitious. So, I was like, if I'm going to do it, let's make it as big as possible. Let's run it like a business. And there's one of 2 retirement plans for that. And I got the one that sends you to jail. And so in 2005, I got sent to the Department of Corrections. By the grace of God, my attorney's able to trot out like, well, excuse me, this guy, went to college, just lived a pretty okay life. So they sent me to a boot camp type of program. And it was there that my life changed forever. It was the first time in my life anyone had ever held me accountable for anything. When you excel at things, you spend a lot of your life being patted on the head and told how pretty you are. So eventually, and I mean, I don't know, where'd you go to school at? Did your university?
For college? Yeah. I actually went to engineering school at Colorado School of Mines in Golden.
Dope. Well, there's a football team there, right?
Yes, there is.
Yeah. So you've got to witness firsthand that especially good football teams and good football players get treated a little bit different than other people. It's not necessarily fair. It's just what it is. And so even with that, in school, I'd have these like weird run-ins where the cops wanted to talk to my friend, and I'd be like, no, you're not talking to him. And I'd be like, I'm Joe Buckner. He's, Jeremy, whatever. And they'd be like, oh, sorry, guys. And so I just started to get to this point where I just didn't feel like any of the rules applied to me. So, of course, I just never did things. I didn't follow through. So when I went to boot camp, it was run by some ex and some current Marines, Army, one Air Force, and it was based on the Army's boot camp. It was the first time in my life I'd ever been called to task by anyone, especially a man. And so I learned really important lessons there. I passed that boot camp. I came out and I changed my life. I started rebuilding my life as a 4-time felon, which is never going to be easy. You got a lot of check marks against you, but I was bound and determined, and I did it. And I put the pieces back together. And in 2013, I ended up homeless for about 7 months. I was homeless here on the streets that I was once a star. But even at that, I'd already built up the skills to survive anything. So even being homeless, it was just like, this is only temporary. I'm going to figure this out. And I went from being homeless to 18 months later being a 6-figure earner in the biggest copier company in the state, to another 18 months later, I started my gym, Beautifully Savage. And now I get to do cool stuff like this and talk to people like you.
Wow. That is so incredible. Like the resilience and your ability to take your pain and turn it into your purpose, I guess. And then pass that forward. It's so powerful. And I want, for everyone listening to, I'll link the video that Joe was featured in, a Lululemon video that kind of dives a little bit deeper into his life story. And it's incredible. So I'll definitely link that in the show notes for everyone as well. But I know you talked in that video about the impacts that had with your relationship with your kids and your family, and that was that kind of a driving force behind your, I guess, just focus and determination to better your life?
Yeah, it was the driving force. I had just turned 21 years old when my daughter was born. Still a college football player. So she and I laugh with her. She's 24 now. I laugh we grew up together, but I was a child trying to raise a child. And then we had our son 3 years later. And so we were 2 kids. Their mom was 19. I was 21. We were 2 kids trying to raise kids and also finish school and work and pay bills. And so I'm not shy about it. I was a pretty crappy dad because I was still selfish and young, and I didn't understand. But getting sent away from them, they ended up becoming the thing, like the thing that kept me going, the thing that kept me from quitting. I mean, 42 of us started that boot camp program and only 14 finished. So
Wow.
it was a hard program. They don't have it anymore, unfortunately. I wish they did, but yeah, they became the thing, and that I dedicated my life to when I came back, and I just became a better father. I was also getting older. I was maturing. I wasn't in my 20s anymore and wanting to be out with my friends till 4 or 5 in the morning. Like, I want to be at home with the kids,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it flipped a switch for me in a very, very special way. And it's weird because I tell people, I think that's the best thing that ever happened to me. And it's like, sometimes they're like, that doesn't make sense to me. But if they could understand the transformation that took inside of me, like, I'll never be the same again. Prior to that, I didn't care. I was the kind of person that if I didn't have a ride to work because I was too irresponsible to have, like, my stuff together, I just wouldn't go to work. I came out of boot camp. I walked 14 miles every day between two $7 an hour jobs just to make sure that I could get there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So something changed. Like, I just flipped the switch and I've never been the same since. And I've carried all those lessons that they taught me there and everything that I've overcome into everything that I've done since then.
Yeah, it seems like that. And like, seriously want to applaud you for like having that perspective and having that like ability to like see, even when you're homeless, like just the temporary nature of that. I feel like that just speaks volumes to like your determination and resilience to like see that potential in yourself. And I know you've mentioned that discipline was kind of like the biggest thing that helped you during that time. And would you say that's helped you from every moment forward and helped you with building in your business?
Sometimes. Sometimes, regiment is helpful to me. Discipline, like, Jocko Willink says that discipline equals freedom. And I know that when I have been more disciplined, I've been able to really, really like move the chains. I'm also so far removed from that there are definitely times when like nutrition is something that I'm constantly battling because like sugar is my drug of choice. Some people drink, some people use, real drugs. Like, sugar's my thing. So when I'm stressed or like my emotions are heightened, I'm just like, oh, I'm just going to have some ice cream or some cookies,
Totally.
So
Totally.
The discipline part for me, like when I'm disciplined and I'm dialed in, I'm unbeatable. But there's also times with that discipline, I'm sure like for all of us, it just wanes a little bit,
totally.
Because I'm like, I tend to be very impulsive in those moments. So, but I'm disciplined like about my business practices and those types of things. But the reason I hesitate to answer is because I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, you're not really doing that great on your nutrition program right now because you're not eating enough and you know what I'm saying? So
yeah,
I struggle in that part of discipline, but yeah, discipline has played a huge part of my life. And like, sometimes I think we take like a broad stroke to discipline, but like, sometimes it's like just paying attention to the details that we overlook. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At boot camp, your toiletries had to be spaced out by 2 fingers and they would come check them. That's discipline, right? Because you could just put them in there and move on with your day. You had to make sure. You had to fold your clothes the size of a Bible. Like, you literally had to make sure they were that size or they would tear everybody's stuff apart and you had to start over. So that's really where I learned the discipline to pay attention to the details, the little things, because like small hinges swing big doors, right? So like discipline definitely plays a part in my life, but I sometimes like, I wish I could like show you around my place because I'm so far removed from that life that sometimes I'm like, I'm good. So
yeah.
So I get a little lax.
Well, you deserve ice cream. And I feel like sometimes it's just that like balance between like discipline as well as like being gentle with ourselves and being compassionate with ourselves and actually enjoying the life that you've created for yourself as well. So that's so powerful. And I love how I was stalking your Instagram this morning and just, I resonate with everything that you post on there. And I think when I first started following you, I saw that in your bio, you had my ancestors' wildest dreams. And I was like, fuck yeah. Like, I saw that. And then by like reading all your content and like, it's just it's incredible. Like just like seeing the strength and seeing the resilience and seeing like your ability to turn that like deep struggle and deep pain into like just alchemizing it into like something that can like help other people. And by you embodying like your full strength, you're just, I mean, you're not, well, maybe you're telling people what to do with boxing and whatnot, but like, you're not necessarily telling people what to do. You're like, by who you're embodying, like you're inspiring so many people. And I love that you said that, your confidence comes from a lifetime of overcoming and your ability to like paint yourself as a superhero. And you mentioned in the podcast you were on earlier this week, which I'll link in the show notes as well for people to listen to, that I love that you said you cannot meet me and think that I'm inferior to you. And that's like spot on, like so true. So would you want to talk a little bit about how you've cultivated that confidence and how you've cultivated that like sense of self?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for catching all that stuff. I can say the confidence has always existed there. That came from a lifetime of achieving. You know, I was one of those kids, you know, the room full of like giant 6-foot high trophies and blue ribbons. And like, I've never walked into a place and be like, someone in here is better than me. You know, like I used to joke, but it's true. I was like, I don't actually know how to lose. Like when I lose at things, I'm like, I don't understand this feeling. I need to go process this, right? I mean, there was a point in my life, honestly, like I would flip over a Monopoly board before I let myself lose because I don't know what losing is supposed to feel like, right? I've got more gracious in my old age, but so I'd say as I was younger, I've developed that confidence early on. There's a certain confidence that's born from being, I want to make sure I say this right because I'm only speaking about athletic endeavors, physical endeavors, being better than people at things, significantly better, not like a touch better, like significantly better, right? I think about people like Michael Phelps. I'm like, how in the world is that guy supposed to stay humble? There's literally no one on the planet that could beat him at the thing that he does. Like, or like a Floyd Mayweather. People say, oh, Floyd Mayweather's so cocky. I'm like, you realize Floyd Mayweather fights for a living and has never been beat up. Not even as a kid, not in the Olympics, not as a pro. This man fights for a living and no one's ever beat him up. You think he's not going to be the most confident human being on the planet? You can't tell him anything. You know what I mean?
For real.
And so early on, that's where it came from. But then as I got older, I realized like, oh, you're a special human. And I say that stuff sometimes and people think it's weird, but I'll tell you, like, everyone's special.
Yeah.
Like, without getting into the biology of it, because that sometimes is weird for people, the probability of being born is astronomical, right? So at a certain point, all of us want to race. So like, to not understand how rare and special that is and to walk around this earth like you're not incredible is crazy to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I understood that if I can compete in this space and win, I can apply the same thing. So I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not in college. I don't play football, but okay, I'm in sales. Okay, I can show up first. I can leave last. I can outwork everybody. And in sales, you are your numbers. So if I have the highest numbers, I win. Great. I'm confident in that. Someone say, well, oh, wow, there's a pretty person, attractive person that I want to talk to. I don't know how to speak to them. I say, go over and tell them your name. Say you'd like to meet them. I don't know if I could do that. Why? You know, like, so like the confidence that I have is born from just a lifetime of achieving and winning. And I know that that sounds weird to say, but winning. And even when I did bad things, I did them at the best of my ability, which is not always good because that's when you get the attention, you get sent away. But, and even when I went to boot camp, I did it to the best of my ability. Even when I came out, I used to tell people, if I get hired at Taco John's, I don't care. In 90 days, I'll be running the place because nobody there will outwork me. And somebody is going to see me and say, that person should not be being managed by that person. And that's what happened. I got a job at a bagel shop. I showed up and crushed every day. And one day the owners came to me and the manager and they're like, hey, Jim, here's the deal. Like, you can't be his manager. It just doesn't make sense. He's the manager now. You can keep working here if you want to. But that story followed. I went to a retail establishment after that. I took a pay cut because I heard that they would promote people to general manager within a year. So I took a pay cut from GM of a restaurant to $9 an hour coffee maker and vacuumer of floors. And I just showed up every day and outsold the sales manager, outworked him. 3 weeks later, the store manager comes to the two of us and says, hey, sales manager, he's the sales manager now. You either work under him or you can go work at our other store. 5 months later, that same general manager, the regional manager, sat me and him down and said, hey, Joe's the general manager now. You can work under him or you can go somewhere else. Like, so my confidence comes from the fact that I'm just going to compete every day. You know what I'm saying? Mm. So the confidence has never been a problem for me. When you're young, though, and you see someone that's so confident, it can border on like that person's arrogant. But it's also because most people don't have that level of self-love. So for them, it's off-putting. Mm. It's off-putting for someone to be like, hey, I'm really great at this thing. Or I'm just great, but you're great too. You know what I mean? And so that's where my confidence comes from. But my ancestors' wildest dream is just the fact that, like, I don't know, every one of us has our ancestors' wildest dream. You know, there were people in our family that couldn't drive cars because cars weren't even invented then. They couldn't do a Zoom interview like this. So if they saw us, they'd be like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. You're talking to someone on a computer and recording it, and you're not even in the same place. That is insane, right?
For real.
So, and we can take that a lot of ways, but the simplest thing, and when I did put it up there, I was thinking about, you know, being a Black man in America and Booker T. Washington walking 500 miles just to try to get into school because he wanted to be educated so bad, and showing up and saying, I walked 500 miles, and them saying, you still can't come to our school. And then cleaning the library, spick and span spotless. Nobody asked him to, he just did it over and over and over again. And then them still saying, you can't come into our school. And then finally getting admitted to school, graduating with honors, getting his degree, starting his own university, Tuskegee University. Booker T. Washington would be smiling down from heaven to see someone like me, walking free, walking around as a king, doing his best to love all people and make a difference in this world. I am my ancestors' wildest dream, but so are you. You know what I mean?
I love that so much. And you're like, for sure, doing an incredible job of that. And I think that's such like an important discussion for everyone right now, like in terms of the times that we're in, is like, we all have this connection to our ancestors, like every single one of us. And it's so powerful that you're able to like show your ancestors like what you're capable of now, and like use that confidence you've cultivated in yourself to basically like tell the world that like they don't have a choice but to respect you at this point. And equally on that side of things, like I know I have connection to my ancestors that has like pain and injustice like in it, and I know that it's like my responsibility to like convert that into like a new reality, like creating a new reality in order to like heal that ancestral lineage that like has been like oppressive and unjust. And like, it's on like as a white person to like heal that lineage and like have that connection with our ancestors. And I feel like a lot of us have been like disconnected from our ancestors in terms of like pretending that everything's okay in the present reality. But I think especially with, and like for future reference, for if anyone like back watches this podcast, like the time that we're in now is like, there's like protests going on as we speak. Like there's protests going on all over the world for Black Lives Matter and for this race discussion that hasn't been as prevalent as it is like in this moment right now. So I think that's just such an important thing for like everyone to talk about, is our connection to our ancestors, and that still like lives within all of us. And so I think it's so powerful to be able to have this conversation right now and to be able to like talk about like the differences, but then like come together to like figure out how we want to like shape the reality moving forward. So
well, and think about like, just to follow up with you, I don't mean to interrupt you, but just think about this little reframe, right? You reframe in the sense of like, a lot of people, you see it like on social media and real life, people will say, well, you know, I got a lot of people to prove wrong, right? I got a lot of people to prove wrong. They doubted me, whatever. I look at it different. I'm like, I have a lot of people to prove right. Anyone that's ever believed in me, that's given me a word of encouragement, that's pushed me forward, that's challenged me to be better, like I have to prove those people right. I don't actually care about proving someone wrong. You could doubt me if you want to. I don't care. But the people that believed in me and loved me, like I have to prove them right over and over and over again. And that to me is a bigger motivator. So whether it's your recent ancestors, my grandfather who was a farmer, my grandmother who worked in the hospital and janitorial, like they sacrificed a lot to come here from Mexico so that I could have the opportunity to be in Fort Collins and go to great schools and grow up around the people that I grew up around. And, you know, so I have a lot of people to prove right. So that's where my ancestors' wildest dream comes from too, right?
I love that. Yeah, that's such a positive reframe, and like focusing on like the people that believe in you and the people who like have spoken that like strength into you as well. Like, yeah. So on that as well, like with the increase in like awareness, I saw this post that you made about coronavirus, and it said like, there's a difference between awareness and being paralyzed by fear. And like, I feel like that relates a ton to like everything going on now too. And like the conversation that's going on right now is like knowing that like, yeah, I guess just like if you want to like expand upon that as well, like in terms of like, you also said in this post that like champions focus on what they're going to, not what they're going through. And so I guess for you personally, as Joe Buckner, what does your like ideal future of like what you're moving towards, what we're moving towards as a world, like what does that look like to you?
I'll address the post first, and then I can share like, you know, that utopian idea of what the world looks like for me. A lot of what I relate to, because I built a brand around this, is boxing. And so for a fighter to fight, you have to understand that if you step into a ring, you don't have teammates. It's you and one other person. And you've both trained for the same thing, to put physical damage on another person. That's scary, right? So you have to be aware when you get into a boxing ring that you are going to get hit. You're going to also hit, but you're going to take some damage. The goal is to take the least amount of damage while doling out the most damage, right? But there's no room for fear in that. You still have to press forward. You still have to show up and fight, right? So that's why I say in my gym, like fighting solves everything. Like you have to fight for the things you want in life, right? So again, a reframe. I take a word that people think is negative, fighting, and I say, no. Anything you want, you have to fight for. No one's going to give it to you. And even when it seems like someone's giving it to you, roadblocks will pop up and mountains to climb and setbacks. You have to keep fighting. You think about Phil Knight, right? Phil Knight ran Nike for 18 years without turning a profit. Could you imagine that?
Wow.
Could you imagine running a company for 18 years without turning a profit? He was $1 million in debt at certain points. One time he bounced $1 million check. None of his employees' payroll covered. None of his debts got paid. 3 different banks kicked him out because he had so much debt. Could you imagine a world without Nike right now?
For real.
You know what I mean? But that's fighting, right? So whether it's the virus or racism, like we have to be aware that these things exist, but we still can't move in fear. Awareness just means, okay, I know this is here, so I'm going to take the precautions to take care of myself. Boxing, I know I can get hit, so I should put my hands up. If I see you attempting to punch me, I should probably slip, take 2 steps backwards. Like there's things I can do to avoid getting hit, but I can't be afraid to get hit because that's bound to happen, right? So that's what I was referring to with that. Like people can't be afraid to take some lumps and to like risk it all for what they want, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that I have any desired outcome out of all this because, to be honest, and I'm going to explain myself because I don't want this to come off sounding like it's negative, but we're having the same conversation we've been having in this country for 600 years. Racism's not going anywhere, right? For every person like me or you that wants it to go away, I can promise you there's 5 guys in Louisiana that are like, absolutely not. Those people are not the same as you. They'll never be the same as you. Don't treat them the same as you. Like, I know these people. I've met them. And I don't begrudge them. That's how they were raised. Like, what are they supposed to do, right? So racism isn't going anywhere. What I would hope we would get to is a point where people who are oppressed, and this has become my message now, and I said it in the podcast, start to realize like, okay, nobody's going to do it for me. I have to do it for myself. Right. So where are the Bob Johnsons, the Magic Johnsons, the LeBron James that are starting? If they say that only 1% of African Americans get a business loan the first time they try, where are the black banks that they can go to and get a fair shake? If they say, well, in these certain parts of the country, there's predatory lending practices and African Americans are either denied or given higher interest rates. Okay, where's the black mortgage companies? You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
Asian people do it. Asian people come here and don't speak a lick of English and kill it, right? They do.
Yeah.
So for black people, if you're asking me about black people in particular, my hope is that they will stop asking for reparations or people to help them and just start helping themselves. Because you know who never gets met with foolishness in this world ever? Me. Literally, I go anywhere. Nobody treats me poorly. Nobody acts a certain way to me. And probably doesn't hurt. I'm like 225 pounds and like, you know, I probably don't look like a dude you should run up on. But I'm also like super nice and smiling. But I'm just saying, like, the way that I move through this world, you have to respect me. You have to. And even when I was dead ass broke and homeless, I still held my head high like a king because I was like, I'm good. I'll be okay. I'm on vacation right now in my Chevy Impala, but whatever. It's cool, you know? So my hope is really that we just get to a point where you don't have to ever feel guilty about something you didn't ask for. You didn't ask to be born looking like that. Two people met, fell in love, and here you are. You didn't do anything to feel guilty about. You've never probably intentionally done anything to harm someone, so why would you ever have to feel guilty? And I want to get past that. My white friends saying to me, I feel guilty. I had one literally say to me, I think I need to turn myself into jail because when I was younger, I got into some trouble and they let me off. And I know it's because I was white. And I'm like, absolutely not. Worst idea ever. Don't do that. What? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You don't have to, no one has to feel guilty for something they didn't ask for. But what we can do, I actually have an IGTV coming out about this, is if we know we have privilege, maybe we can use that to lift other people up. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
And white people aren't the only people with privilege. I have privilege. Literally, I have privilege. Look around my place. My place is gorgeous. I grew up in Fort Collins, Colorado. When I was in fourth grade, I would go play at my friend Billy Dressel's house. His dad is Judge Dressel. I wasn't playing to Bill, the bus driver's house. One of my best friends was Ben Hale. His dad was Raymond Hale, attorney, partner at Hale, Smith & Williams. Like, these are the kids I grew up with. So I have privilege too. So I can either feel bad, like, oh, I wish I was born in Harlem so I could, you know, be super poor, more poor than I was, and deal with racism and police brutality every day. Or I could say, okay, I have privilege. I know these people. I can call them and say, hey, hi, what can we do? Right. So that's what I've been doing. So that's what I hope is that, like, everyone just starts to take accountability for themselves and saying, okay, this is what we're going to do to fix our situation. And oh, by the way, we're going to not treat other people like crap. But even if someone wants to treat me like crap, I'm good. I'll be fine. You know what I'm saying? So that's my hope, is that, like, someone that's amazing like you never has to say, like, oh, I feel guilty for something I didn't actually do. Right? And someone that looks like me doesn't have to look at someone and go, you should feel guilty because you were unaware, or, do you know what I mean? Like, that's just not fair. And I just wish more people were willing to say, yes, this is a situation. I'm aware of it. Here's what I intend to do about it. So, you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. I think that's such an important reframe and such a good way to look at it. Cause I think it's kind of like what you were saying about fear too, of that, like, both fear and guilt are like very real emotions, like those exist, but then it's like, what do we do with those? Like, how do we like then like reframe those and take action? And like, I for sure like have felt so guilty and have been trying to deal with that like internally and not like voice that to like anyone outside of myself, but just have been, I mean, I've cried a lot in terms of like the actions that I know like my ancestors like are linked to and everything. But then I keep reminding myself that like, in the uncertainty, in the discomfort, in the guilt, like turn that into action and turn that into hope, and focusing on like, if I do feel that guilt, like where can I like then take action to like catalyze that, to alchemize that into hope and into like building something better.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah. So thank you for that reframe and that, and like, thank you for your energy overall. Cause I think it's so powerful, like the way that you're able to move through the world with such like confidence and such like strength. And like you said, like no one's going to fuck with you, but like you come at it from such an open and loving way. And I love, I'm not going to make you repeat this story because I know you've recorded it on IGTV as well as the other podcast, but your story about meeting the woman at the gas station. And that story is so cool and so powerful of just how you're able to be so open and like coming from a place of like just genuine openness and love. And that story inspired me for like how I'm moving in the world, to like judge other people less. Cause like I feel like I've had this like rage in terms of like, we need to do better. Like we need to do more, like we need to take action. And it's caused this like judgment against like white people, or I guess any people that aren't taking like action or aren't doing anything. And then like listening to that story from you was like, no, don't focus on like what they're doing, or like be open to like what their circumstances are or how they were raised, and be open to just like meeting it with love. Cause we're never going to like solve anything if we all just like come at each other like this all the time. So I love that.
Yeah, that's been one of my, and Bethany and I are actually going for a walk this week. So I'm really excited to see her. She's awesome. I really appreciate her opening her heart and giving me an opportunity. But even our first interaction, you're talking about a girl who was like been a white supremacist her whole life. To see me and even make that little bit of fun conversation, like, hey, mister, you know, you going to the gym? Or, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I show up. And that's how I wish everyone would show up, right? But to go back to that quote about winners, right? A gentleman named Paul Orberson used to say that, someone I really looked up to. And he would say, you know, people that consistently lose at life, and we're not saying that people are winners or losers, but we know those people that like every couple months, something's going on. Like, oh man, like I got this and I had that job, and it's like, oh man, again, those people are constantly focused on what they're going through. Right. So that's how I feel about racism, right? Like, let's talk about racism. I'm like, no, racism is here. It's not going anywhere. Let's talk about what we're going to. What are we going to do? Right. Because that's what champions do. They focus on where they're going. It's LeBron James down 3-1 against maybe one of the best teams ever, knowing that it's him and 4 guys you wouldn't pick up in a YMCA game playing against the Golden State Warriors and coming back to win. You know what I mean? Like, okay, here I am. I'm the greatest player on earth. I got these dudes that like nobody even knows their name. And we're playing Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, KD. Like, we're playing the greatest, right? I could focus on that, or I can be like, I want this championship and I want it more than anything. So nothing is going to stop me from getting that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, that's where that quote comes in. There's a really cool meme online that actually is Michael Phelps, and he's swimming, you know, and he's rocking, he's head down. And then the dude next to him that finished second is out of the water, but he's looking at Michael Phelps like this. And in the meme, it literally says, losers focus on winners, winners focus on winning. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like that about like not allowing yourself to get distracted and like being like playing that like active creator role of your life of like only focusing on like what you want it to look like, and like everything else is just a distraction. Yeah.
And also understanding like it's easier to move through the world with empathy when we realize that every single one of us is just seeing the world through our own very limited lens of who our parents are, where we grew up at. My view of this world is very different than someone who grew up in maybe rural Alabama or, you know, the SWATs in LA, you know. I mean, when I played football when I was in school, and I was fortunate to play with extremely talented guys. So I went to a great school my freshman year, and we had kids from Texas, you know, North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, Georgia, like really extremely talented guys. And I remember one of them, this kid named Derek, he's from Tallahassee, Florida. He says to me, he says, I hate white people. I'm like all of them? Like every one of them? He's like, yeah, I can't stand them. And I'm like, my best friend is white. Like, that is crazy to me. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, I'm like, that's nuts. But that's his very, very limited, like that big scope of what the world is and what he's experienced, right?
Yeah.
I'll share this little story with you real quick. Last summer, I was at a Kansas City Chiefs game in Kansas, and I'm sitting next to these guys, and like, it didn't take much for us to realize like we're not the same. You know, it's like me, Lululemon clothes, like just like fitness dude. And these dudes were definitely like, you know, plaid shirts tucked into their Wranglers, like baseball caps. Like we were not the same vibe, right? And the dude next to me, like they even get into a little argument with some other dudes. And I'm like, oh man, this is going to be a long game. Somehow the guy next to me and me ended up in the drink line together and started talking. And he wanted to talk about Donald Trump. And I'm like, let me listen. Let me hear what he has to say. Me and this guy talk all the way through the line, talk while we're waiting for our drinks. When we get to the front of the line, he pays for my drink. And then we go stand off in the corner and we talk for probably another 15, 20 minutes and have this amazing conversation about how we both see the world and how maybe it's a little bit different, but if we can just respect someone else enough to let them see the world they want to see it without trying to change it, right? And he gave me the best quote. I said, we just all have to respect each other. I can't talk with you in the hopes that I'm going to change your mind because that's wrong, right? I can't share with you in the hopes that I'm going to change your mind, but maybe I'll shed some light on why I see the world the way I do, and you'll shed some light on the way you see it. He said, respect. He said, I like that. He said, we have a saying in Nebraska, good fences make good neighbors, right? So our fences are our boundaries. That's how we move through the world. So for me, it's easy to meet a Bethany and not judge her because I don't expect her to see the world the way that I do. But maybe I can learn why she sees the world the way that she does. And that'll give me some insight in how to approach her as a human being. And that's how we became friends.
I love that. You just dropped so many good nuggets in there, but like, that's so powerful. Like that's how everyone should move through the world. And like, that makes such a difference in like how we, like at the end of the day, we're all humans, and like our human experience is like what defines us and like what creates us. Like you said, that like all of us have like, I mean, we have both like light and dark inside, like the shadow and the light, like inside all of us. So like, I think the way that like you move is like seeing that light in people and like finding that light in people, like even when like it could be easy to like define them by their shadow, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. And even when you see their darkness, it's like, cool, let me learn about that. Like I've been so challenged since March with this coronavirus situation because it seems like people want to demonize anyone that doesn't think the way they do. So my stance from the beginning was, if you have fear, if you have a reason that you're afraid, please be as afraid as you need to be. Stay home, do what you have to do. But you can't be mad at that guy who like took out a second mortgage on his house and that restaurant feeds his family for wanting to keep his business open. He has his reasons, just like you have your reasons, right? And so I just wish, let's go back to your question. What does the world look like? I wish we could get to a world where people can disagree without being disagreeable, right?
Yes.
Where people can actually love and respect each other enough to say, that's cool that you see the world the way that you do. I don't, but I get why you do. Some of my best friends are massive Donald Trump supporters. I am not, but I know why they are because I took time to understand them. Doesn't mean I love them any less. I get it. You know, we vote with our checkbook most of the time. So I get it. So, that would actually be my dream. If we could just get to a place where people are allowed to think what they think. But I will draw the line here. Like, you can think whatever you want. You can say whatever you want. Just don't try to do something to me, because then we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Like actively harming like other humans or actively harming the world.
Don't try to do something to me or people I love. If we can keep that vibe, then we're good. We can talk all day.
Yeah, like that ability to like celebrate our differences, because like the world would be boring if everyone thought the same thing, and if everyone like had like the same exact set of like values and wishes. And like, yes, there's like a crossing point where it does become harmful, and that's like a different conversation, I think. But like in terms of what we're talking about, like, yeah, like our differences are what makes us beautiful. And if we can find ways to like understand and appreciate those differences and like honor them and like, yeah, like not try and change them and not have that like ulterior motive of like trying to like get someone to see something the way that you do. Like that's so powerful, like the way that you move through the world. And that's like so incredibly inspiring. And yeah, it can be easy to like let our egos get in the way sometimes, I think.
Of course. Yeah, we all have them, right?
For real.
And we all want to, I don't know. I think we run into a situation too with a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people where like being right matters most to people, you know? Let me share statistics and facts and things and, you know, all my confirmation bias to try to sway you so that I feel right. And it's like, I don't know what's right, you know, what's right, because right for me is not right for you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I feel like I see that in relationships, like talked about a lot, is like, do you care more about being right or do you care more about like your relationship? And I think that applies to the world. So thank you for that. And thank you just for like all of your inspiration. And I want to end on a final question.
Let's go.
I guess it's kind of related to what we've been talking about, but just in case there's a different answer, I always ask all my guests of what makes you a happy human and what is your best advice for someone for just being a happy human existing in this world?
That's an awesome question. What makes me a happy human is like nauseatingly massive self-love. Like really, that's where everything starts, because I love me so much that I don't need anyone else to love me. Number one, but it also allows me to then love other people, right? There's this, it allows me to have empathy, right? There's this feeling that, well, you have to have your cup full. Your cup has to be full. Your cup has to be full. And I'm like, well, sure. But like, this was full when we started. I took 4 drinks out of it. It's like half full now, right? It'll never be full again unless I fill it back up. But if it was overflowing, if it was a fountain of e-boost fuel, it never runs out, right? So I'm not a proponent of like fill your cup up and then pour into other people. I'm a proponent of love yourself so much that that's overflowing, and then you can people can drink from your saucer. You know what I mean? Without you ever having to deplete your self-love. So what makes me a happy human is massive, overwhelming self-love, because that allows me to then love big to everybody. So whether you're in a friendship with me, a business partnership with me, a relationship with me, I love at a 10 all the time because I love this thing.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I love that so much. And you do an incredible job of embodying that just with like all of your actions and conversations and who you are as a human. So I'm so grateful that you exist and that we can coexist in this lifetime together. Sure. And how can people stay in touch with you? And I'll link this in the show notes as well. But what are your Instagram handles so people can stay in touch?
My Instagram is Mr. Joe Buckner. My website is mrjoebuckner.com. My daughter has recently got me onto TikTok, so I'm sharing a lot of my inspirational videos on there. Definitely working on that. I have a Facebook, but I really don't mess with Facebook like that. So Instagram, my website, and the TikTok, I'm really putting some time and energy into that right now as well.
Beautiful. Well, I will make sure to link all of those for people to follow up with you, as well as your Lululemon video and your other podcasts that you've done. So
let's go.
Thank you so much. You're an incredible human.